Lab number 259. So we continue developing our hybrid messenger application, and right now it's time to focus on some kind of action when we will click on specific delivery item. So those actions can be actually to call to our receiver, saying, for example, I'm here, go down, take your package. Second option can be to navigate to the place where he is. So, for example, you're clicking on the item, you click in navigate, and it's opening Google Maps with the navigation to location where you need to go. And the third option can be to say, okay, I've delivered this one, so either remove it from the list or mark somehow that I delivered, so I won't bother anymore with it. So we will display those details in alert message, just similar to the way how we did it with login. So let's define some kind of function in our shadow.ts. Well, let's call it display details, something like that. And we will have our item provided as an input parameter here. So what it means is when we will click on the item inside the HTML file, somewhere here, like item, we can specify the action click. And right here we can call this display details with providing this item as an input parameter, just like that. So I will go back to TS file. So now inside this display details, we will basically need to define our alert. So just the way how we did it previously, it will be prompt alert type. Actually, we won't put anything inside as an input fields, but we will just have several options as a buttons. So let's keep my variable name to prompt. And then we will have inside alert create, and we need to specify the properties inside. So in order to be able to catch alerts, we need to reference to it somewhere on the top. We need to load alert, we need to load also nav controller. And just like this. So inside this alert, what we will define is first of all some kind of title. Let's call something like delivery details. Then we will have the subtitle with the item name. So item name, as you remember, means the name of the receiver of this item. Then we can provide some kind of message with additional details. Let's assign it to variable message. And let's create that variable first, of course. So what we should have inside this message variable? Well, I think we need to specify the delivery time. So delivery time, something like from then specific value. So we need to add here item time. This is the start time plus, of course, because it's just number, let me add double zeros to that. So two, and then we need to provide something like, well, let's call it end time, and we'll also need to provide double zeros at the end. And let's specify that it will be a new line also with HTML tag beer. So this will be the first part of our message. Here we need to define end time. So for that we need to use item time, because by default it will be accepted as text. We need to parse it. So for that we can use parse ends, and we need to pass inside item time. And now after we pass this as as an integer, we can just add 1 to that with end time plus plus. It will be enough. So now it will be, for example, from 9 to 10. And then let's also have our message second line. So I will add it to previous message, something like address, and then providing the address. We can take it from item address, of course, just like that. So what else we will have inside our alerts except message, subtitle, and title is of course buttons that we will need to define. So first one will be just simple, let's call it the close button. That will do nothing. Then we will have another button, let's call it for example navigate button. So this button will have a handler, of course. Something like, well, I don't know, we can call it data. We don't actually need that, I mean, what to pass inside, because we still have reference to items, so it will be enough. But anyway, so inside this handler, let's first of all do some logging. Something like trying to navigate to address and then providing the address name, something like item address, just like that. And together with this logging, we need to somehow launch the external navigation application. So the way how we can do it with the URL starting from geo. So this is the HTML5 way of defining URLs. So we can define things like mail to, which is standard, things like URL and so on. But there is also thing like geo or tel to actually call the geolocation application or to start the dialer and dial number. So in case of geolocation, let's define some variable like geo, for example, or geolog even, and we will need to define the URL that should look like this. First of all, geo, then we can search for address with question mark q and then the address name. So in our case, because address contains the special characters that exist in a Czech language, I will add the coda mark here, and now I can add item address plus close that mark. So this will be our geo, and then we can call some kind of function that will actually perform a launch. So let's call it something like launch external, and passing inside this geo log. So this launch external should be defined, of course, somewhere. And let's pass here the URL, and what it will do, it will just use a window location, pass this URL, and hopefully it will automatically open the app, because from the config XML by default we should have access to those things. Yeah, those allow intent means that we will be able to open those geo links and tel links that we'll use later on. Okay, so what will happen is actually for now we will have two buttons. So first one will be close, second one will be navigate. So when we will click navigate, hopefully it will open Google Maps and display that item on Google Map. So additionally to that, we also need to display actually this alert. So something like nav, then present, and this prompt. And of course, in order to use nav controller, we need to reference it in our constructor, just as we did before. Nav controller, and then define a variable. just like that. So now theoretically it should work. Let me save this file and wait until live reload will finish. Okay. So we have our items. Let's try to click on it. Cool. So we have delivery time from 9 to 10. We have address there. We have a name and two buttons. So close button should do nothing, meaning it should close this alert. And navigate button should actually open the external application. Yep, we are seeing that Google Maps is actually opening. Yeah, this is the first time I've opened it, so I need to accept the license. I don't need to sign in, I will skip this step. Yes, as you can see, it's actually opened the provided address, so it searched for that street and opened it, so cool. Now we can do the same for actually calling number, but first let me return back to our application. I clicked twice on exit, so I need to relaunch our developer tools. Okay, so now we can continue. So third button will be a call button. So text will be equal to call, and we also will have a handler. So first of all, again, logging. Let's add here item name, so we'll know whom we are calling, and let's also add here the item phone to display a number which we are trying to call. And what we need to do is to define a variable, let's call it something like pn, meaning the phone number, and inside we'll construct the URL, so it starts with tel, and then basically we just need to add here the item phone, it will be enough. So now we need to again call this launch external and pass inside as an input parameter this pn. Just like that. And the final button that we will have together with the call button will be delivered button. So we'll have here text something like delivered, and what will happen is once somebody will click on this button, we will need to mark somehow that this item is delivered. I don't think we should remove it from a list. Let's better change the style how we display it. For example, let's just display a strike line across all the text to see that it's done, it's completed. So first we will do a login. Okay, emulator seems to be going for a start, unfortunately. Well, anyway, we have time. So console login, item delivered, and let's just display this item here. This will be the first step. Second step, we need to get an index of this item in the list. So we can find out that index by just defining a variable, let's call it index, and then taking this delivery index of and providing item as parameter. So we will get the index of this specific item in our delivery list. And then what we can do is to pass this delivery index and define a variable something like delivered equal to true. So we will have, there are two options, either false, either true inside delivered. So when the delivered will be true, we will just change the CSS style. So how to do it? First of all, we can save this shadow.ts and then we can navigate to HTML and somewhere here to define the style. Again, this construction is related to Angular 2 and this really cool thing because we can specify style, then for example text decoration. This is the CSS style, and basically what we can do is we can define some kind of logic here. For example, just name the variable. In our case it will be item delivered. Let me do a word wrap, it will be easier to watch. So item delivered, in case it will be true, we'll do one thing. In case it will be false, it will be another thing. So what that means? It means that thing that we will provide here as a parameter, for example, line through, will mean that we will display the line across the text. Will be in case delivered variable is equal to true. Otherwise, if it's equal to false, we can say that text decoration will be equal to none. So this is the way how to actually apply the changes. So now we can save this HTML file, and because my Android was relaunched, I need to launch once again it. I'm in the application, so let me launch live reload. If you have it working, you don't need to bother with this action. Unfortunately, I need to, so let's wait until it will be started. Okay, so the application is starting. I can open the inspection tool also. Okay, we still have our items. So let's see, we'll start with the call button. It should open the dialog with that number. Yep, cool. Now we can go back. To our application. Let's try to say that it's delivered. And yeah, as you can see, now this line is striped with the line. So basically that's it. On this step we are finishing this lab, and we'll continue development in next labs. Thank you.